You think you know the Titanic because you've seen the movie, right? Jack and Rose, that legendary romance, and that heartbreaking ending. But hold on, what if I told you that the 3-hour blockbuster barely scratched the surface? The truth hiding behind those Hollywood scenes is far more chilling than anything James Cameron filmed. Today, we are putting the Hollywood legends side by side with the actual human beings they were based on. We're going to see what they really looked like and find out exactly what happened to them in their final moments. Were the movie heroes actually heroes in real life? Was the villain really a villain or just a victim of circumstance? Get ready, because we are about to wake the ghosts of the Titanic. The reality is stranger and much more tragic than fiction. Let's start right at the top with the man responsible for every single soul on board, Captain Edward John Smith. They called him the Captain of Millionaires for a reason. The world's wealthiest people wouldn't sail with anyone else. After 40 years at sea, this voyage was supposed to be his victory lap before retirement. Cruel irony, isn't it? In the film, Bernard Hill plays him with a heavy, stoic dignity, locking himself in the wheelhouse. In reality, he remained on the bridge until the very end, watching his world crumble around him, going down with his ship. But then you have the flip side of the coin, J. Bruce Ismay, chairman of the White Star Line. The movie paints him as the ultimate villain, anxious, selfish, and sneaking into a lifeboat. But the real story is complicated. Ismay actually helped load boats for quite a while, but when he saw a spot open in collapsible sea with no women or children nearby, he took it. He survived, yes, but the world destroyed him for it. He was branded a coward and lived the rest of his life in shame. The movie's Jonathan Hyde captured that defensive guilt perfectly, but history suggests he wasn't the monster we think he was. Now, let's talk about a woman who was an absolute force of nature, Margaret Brown, better known as the Unsinkable Molly Brown. She didn't just sit quietly in Lifeboat 6, she was practically running the show. When Quartermaster Robert Hichens refused to row back to save swimmers, she threatened to throw him overboard and take command herself. Kathy Bates nailed that take-no-prisoners attitude in the film. She didn't just survive, she fought for everyone else long after the ship went down.
Then there's John Jacob Astor IV, the richest man on the ship. He had enough money to buy a lifeboat, but he didn't. He put his pregnant wife, Madeline, safely in a boat and asked if he could join her to protect her. When the officer said no, Astor didn't argue. He didn't make a scene. He just stepped back, lit a cigarette, and accepted his fate. In the movie, Eric Braeden is seen standing by his young wife, a detail that is tragically accurate. Madeline was just 5 months pregnant. She survived to give birth to John Jacob Astor VI, a living legacy of that nightmare. Now, we have to address the most controversial portrayal in the film, First Officer William Murdoch. The movie shows him taking a bribe and then shooting himself in a panic. But the reality? He was a hero. Murdoch worked like a machine on the starboard side, launching boat after boat and saving hundreds of lives. He didn't commit suicide. He died at his post, swept away by the sea. The movie studio actually had to issue an apology to his family for that inaccuracy. But if you want a true love story, forget Jack and Rose for a second and look at Ida and Isidore Strauss. Ida was offered a seat on a lifeboat. She refused. She looked at her husband and said, "We have lived together, so we shall die together." In the film, you see that heartbreaking shot of an elderly couple hugging in bed as the water rises. That was them, a real-life testament to undying love. And the musicians, Wallace Hartley and his band, yes, that happened. While everyone was screaming and running, they stood on the deck playing music to keep the crowd calm. Hartley knew he wasn't going to make it, yet he kept playing. In the movie, the moment Jonathan Evans-Jones plays that final note on the violin, it breaks your heart. In reality, thousands of people attended Hartley's funeral to honor that incredible act of courage. But not everyone was looking out for the crowd. Enter Lady Duff Gordon, a famous fashion designer. She escaped in Lifeboat 1. Here's the kicker. That boat had a capacity of 40, but it launched with only 12 people. Rumors swirled that she and her husband, Sir Cosmo, bribed the crew not to go back for swimmers. They were officially cleared of wrongdoing, but the stain of buying their lives followed them forever. Then you have the heart of the ship, Thomas Andrews, the architect. Victor Garber's performance in the movie is gut-wrenching because it's so real. Andrews realized before anyone else that the ship was doomed. He spent his final hours frantically urging people to put on life jackets. He was last seen in the first-class smoking room, staring blankly at a painting, watching his masterpiece become a tomb. But amidst the tragedy, leadership came from unexpected places. The Countess of Rothes wasn't just a high society lady waiting to be saved. She grabbed the tiller of her lifeboat and helped row. Seaman Thomas Jones was so impressed by her grit that he later gifted her the brass number plate from the boat. She was a total class act.
However, the real heroes weren't just on deck. They were in the radio room. John Jack Phillips, the senior wireless operator, stayed at his key tapping out CQD and SOS signals until the power literally failed. His dedication is the only reason the Carpathia arrived at all. He died of exposure in the freezing cold, but his partner, Harold Bride, survived. Bride was so committed that even after being rescued, he helped work the radio on the Carpathia. Let's talk about Second Officer Charles Lightoller. This guy was strict. He enforced the women and children rule with an iron fist on the port side. If you were a man, you weren't getting in. Amazingly, he survived by clinging to an overturned collapsible boat all night long. Actor Johnny Phillips nailed that stern, no-nonsense authority in the film. And Benjamin Guggenheim? Talk about going out in style. He realized he wasn't going to make it, so he changed into his evening wear, famously declaring, "We are dressed in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen." He refused a life jacket and sat in the foyer, sipping brandy and smoking a cigar as the end came. But let's rewind to the split second that started it all. Frederick Fleet, the lookout. Did you know he didn't have binoculars? He had to rely on his naked eyes in the pitch black. He spotted the iceberg, but it was too late. He survived, but the guilt of that night haunted him for the rest of his life. And finally, the biggest star of them all, Rose.
Titanic
I hate to
sinks.
break it to you, but Rose and Jack were fictional
Great loss of
characters.
life.
However, Rose's story is a mosaic of real women's experiences. But if you want a real-life action hero, look at Fifth Officer Harold Lowe. He was the only officer to turn his lifeboat around and go back into the darkness. He pulled people out of the freezing water. The movie scene where he uses a flashlight to search for survivors, that really happened. And we can't forget Jack Thayer, a 17-year-old kid. He got separated from his parents, jumped into the freezing ocean, and managed to balance on an overturned boat until dawn. His written accounts are one of the main reasons we know so much about the sinking today. Then there was the youngest officer, James Moody. He bravely stayed behind to help launch boats, giving up his chance at survival. And Chief Officer Henry Wilde, whose whistle and commands tried to keep order amidst the chaos until the very end. And Fourth Officer Joseph Boxhall, whose distress rockets lit up the night sky, guiding the rescue ship to the site. These weren't just characters in a blockbuster movie. They were real people with families, hopes, and fears. Seeing them side by side with the actors who played them brings the tragedy home. The movie gave us the emotion, but the true stories of these passengers remind us that reality is often far more powerful than fiction. The Titanic rests at the bottom of the ocean, but through these stories, the people aboard remain alive.